The woman in scrubs mopped silently near the nurse's station, head down, gloved hands gripping the long handle like she belonged to it. One of the orderlies nudged his coworker and whispered, "New janitor, her." They didn't see the badge clipped to her collar. They didn't notice the confidence in her posture, or the steely precision in her eyes. They definitely didn't realize that in less than 4 hours, the janitor would be elbow-deep in a man's chest, guiding a trauma team through a surgery so complex most attending surgeons wouldn't touch it. She wasn't here to wipe floors. She was here to save a life. Her name was Dr. Nia Bennet. And by the end of the night, they'd never forget it. Before we dive in, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe, because that encourages us to bring you more powerful stories like this. Nia stepped into the pristine halls of Hawthorne Memorial, her sneakers quiet against the marble tile. Her coat was folded over one arm, scrubs clean and pressed. She had arrived early, on purpose. She wanted to learn the rhythm of the place before the chaos hit. But the rhythm hit her first. A nurse breezed past and shoved a trash bag into her arms. "Break room bins are full." Nia blinked. But the nurse was already gone. At the desk, another woman waved her over. "We need extra towels in OR3. And someone clogged the toilet in administration. Again." Nia opened her mouth, raised her badge, "Dr. Bennet, trauma surgery." But no one was listening. It wasn't new. It wasn't surprising. But it still scraped something raw inside her. Then came Dr. Charles Langston. He stepped off the elevator in an immaculate white coat, expensive watch gleaming under the fluorescence. Tall, confident, the kind of man who walked into rooms like he owned them. He took one look at Nia and said, "Custodial closet is that way." No hello. No question. Just a command. Nia didn't flinch. She simply turned and scanned her badge into the surgical wing. "I'm Dr. Nia Bennet," she said evenly. "Transferred in from Johns Hopkins. Maybe try leading with a greeting next time." Langston's eyes narrowed. His smirk vanished. "Of course," he said, voice clipped. "Didn't realize. Didn't see." Nia kept walking. Inside the staff locker room, she exhaled hard. She pulled out her phone, touched the photo of her mother for grounding. "You worked for this," she reminded herself. "Don't let them shake you." Then the trauma pager blared. "Level 1 incoming," came the overhead call. "Male, 62. Multiple chest wounds. Critical condition." The name popped up, Mr. Elijah Chambers. Nia's heart rate kicked up. She didn't know it yet, but this would be the case. The moment, that changed everything. The trauma bay was a storm of shouting and motion. Paramedics burst through the doors, pushing a gurney at full speed. Mr. Elijah Chambers was barely conscious, his chest soaked in blood, a jagged wound running beneath his ribcage. "GSW to the thorax," the lead EMT barked. "No exit wound. BP's crashing." "We lost his pulse for 40 seconds in the ambulance." Dr. Charles Langston swooped in, snapping on gloves like he was on a red carpet. "I'll take lead. Get thoracotomy tools prepped. We're cracking him open. Stat." Nia slid in beside the gurney. "Hold on. Look at his vitals. He's compensating, but barely. We need imaging before we open up. If the bullets lodged near the pericardium." Langston didn't even look at her. "We don't have time to second guess. Scalpel." The nurse hesitated. "I said scalpel." The blade hit his glove with a soft slap. Langston made the first incision, his movements swift but showy, like he was performing for a crowd that wasn't there. Blood welled up immediately. Retractor. Nia watched the monitors. Oxygen plummeting. Pressure dropping. Heart rhythm erratic. "This isn't right," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Langston was digging. Too deep. Too fast. Mr. Chambers bucked slightly under sedation, his lungs gasping like drowning lungs breaking through water. Nia stepped in closer. "Dr. Langston, if you just pause, we should consider a pericardial window. He's bleeding into the sac, not the pleural cavity. You're missing it." Langston didn't pause. He didn't blink. I don't take surgical notes from interns. I'm not an intern, Nia said, her voice rising slightly. And if you keep this up, you're going to collapse his lung and kill him. A beat passed. Langston turned to her, finally, but only to bark, then you're welcome to step out. Nia didn't move. Nurse Carla stood at the foreline, hands steady. Her eyes flicked between the monitors, Langston, and then to Nia. Quietly, she leaned over and whispered, I've seen your file. Hopkins. Baylor. Top of your class. Nia glanced at her, surprised. Carla nodded, just once. If you say he's bleeding into the sack, I believe you. Nia's jaw tensed. She looked around the room, everyone focused on Langston, yet no one certain. The bleeding wasn't slowing. The patient was fading. She couldn't walk away. Not now. A shrill alarm broke the tension like glass. Flatline. Mr. Chambers' heart had stopped. Crash cart. Langston barked, his hands soaked in crimson. His tone was urgent now, less theatrical, more panicked. Paddles. Now. BP's gone, another nurse shouted. Nia stood frozen for a beat, heart hammering against her ribs. The man was dying, right in front of them. And she knew it didn't have to go this way. Langston's hands were shaking now, sweat on his brow. Charge to 200. Clear. The jolt lifted the patient's body. Still nothing. The monitor screamed flat. Again. Charge to 300. Clear. Enough. The voice came from the doorway, deep and commanding. Dr. Evelyn Rivers stepped into the trauma bay like a wave rolling in. Calm, measured, but impossible to ignore. The chief of surgery wore no scrubs, just a tailored navy blue blazer over her blouse, but every eye snapped to her the moment she spoke. Langston stepped back instinctively. Dr. Rivers, You've lost him, she said coolly, assessing the room with one sweep. Her gaze landed on Nia. Unless someone else has a better idea. The room held its breath. Nia wiped her hands, locked eyes with Rivers, then turned to the gurney. We need a subxiphoid pericardial window. The bleeding's in the sac. If we relieve the pressure now, we can restart the heart. Langston scoffed. You'll puncture his myocardium. Nia ignored him. Someone hand me a number 10 blade. Retractor, suction, and get me a syringe, 18 gauge. Rivers folded her arms. Do it. Langston backed away, sour and silent. Nia moved fast, confident. She made a vertical incision just below the sternum. Blood welled up immediately, thick and dark. That was the sign. The sac was full. She slid the retractor in, opening the window into the heart's chamber. Suction. The nurse handed her the tool with trembling hands. Blood rushed out in a heavy stream. Nia's brow was furrowed in focus. Every movement was precise. She slid the syringe into the sac and drew back. A rush of dark fluid filled the tube. The monitor beeped. Another beep. The line on the screen twitched, then rose in rhythmic peaks. Sinus rhythm returning, said a nurse. We've got a heartbeat. A breath of awe swept through the room like wind through trees. Nurses exchanged stunned glances. Even the anesthesiologist let out a quiet thank God. But Nia wasn't done. We need to close the window and reinforce the pericardium. If we move fast, we can stabilize him for post-op recovery. She moved like music, steady, fluid, in control. Her fingers knew the rhythm of a human life in her hands. The bleeding slowed. The pressure in the room eased. It felt like witnessing a miracle sculpted from muscle and blood. Langston said nothing. He stood near the corner, a statue with no audience. When it was over, Mr. Chambers was alive. Pale, weak, but alive. Nia stripped off her gloves, her arms streaked with dried blood and sweat. She turned to Dr. Rivers. I need a full cardiac team in recovery. He's not out of the woods yet, but he's here. Rivers nodded, her eyes not leaving Nia's. You just saved a man everyone else had given up on. The room was quiet. Then came the slow clap, one pair of hands, then another, Then the room erupted into genuine, stunned applause. And through it all, Nia stood tall, not proud, but grounded. She hadn't done this for praise. She'd done it because someone had to. Because she could. The operating room had emptied, but the energy lingered, like echoes after a thunderclap. Nia stood outside the ICU, looking through the glass at Mr. Chambers. Tubes snaked from his body. Machines hissed and beeped, but the numbers were stable. He was holding on. Behind her, soft footsteps approached. It was Dr. Evelyn Rivers. "Thought I'd find you here," Rivers said, her voice softer than before. Nia didn't turn around. "He's going to make it." Rivers nodded. "Because of you." There was a beat of silence. Then, "I watched you in there. You didn't flinch. You didn't wait for permission. You knew exactly what needed to be done." "I had no choice," Nia replied. "If I'd waited, he would have died." "Still," Rivers said, stepping beside her, "most people would have frozen. You didn't. That's leadership." Nia finally looked over. "Thank you for giving me the chance." Rivers gave a small, proud smile. "You earned it before today." The rest of them just didn't see it. As if on cue, the elevator doors behind them opened. Dr. Langston stepped out, still in scrubs, his hair disheveled, pride trailing behind him like smoke. He saw them and paused. For a second, he seemed ready to turn away, but then he approached. His voice was low, strained. "Dr. Bennet." Nia turned slowly. "Dr. Langston. I owe you an apology." The words were jagged, like glass in his throat. "I was wrong. About you. About everything." She didn't gloat. Just waited. Langston cleared his throat. "You saw what I didn't. You saved that man's life, not me." Nia raised an eyebrow. "Is that why you refused to make eye contact the entire time I was stitching his pericardium?" A flicker of shame passed through Langston's face. "I suppose I deserved that." She let him sit in the silence for a moment longer before offering a quiet nod. "Thank you for saying it." Langston looked over at Rivers. "If it's not inappropriate, I'd like to request a consult with Dr. Bennet on my next cardiac case." Rivers raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. "Noted." Langston turned to leave, but Rivers stopped him. "Dr. Langston." He turned back. "You were right about one thing," she said coolly. "There was only one person in that OR qualified to save Mr. Chambers." Langston looked like he'd swallowed a nail. Then he nodded and walked away. The silence after he left was lighter somehow. Nia exhaled deeply. Then came another voice from down the hall. "Dr. Bennet." It was Dr. Jamie Rhodes, young, brilliant, and just starting out. He jogged over, nearly tripping on his own feet. "I just heard. You really did it, didn't you?" Nia shrugged. Man had a full tamponade. "I just relieved the pressure." "Relieved the," Rhodes blinked. "You saved his life. That's legendary. Look, I know this might sound crazy, but do you think I could shadow you? Learn from you?" Nia tilted her head. "You want to learn from the janitor?" Rhodes winced. "Okay, yeah. That was out of pocket. I'm sorry." She smiled, the edge of it warm and mischievous. "Apology accepted." He smiled back. "Seriously, though? You've got something the rest of us don't. I want to understand how you see things, how you know things before the rest of us do." Nia considered him for a second. "All right, Dr. Rhodes. First lesson, always trust your gut. Especially when the data is screaming and nobody else is listening." He nodded solemnly, as if she were handing him a scalpel and a sacred truth at the same time. As Rhodes left, Rivers turned to Nia one last time. "You didn't just save a life today," she said. "You changed this place. You changed us." Nia watched Mr. Chambers' chest rise and fall through the glass. "No," she said softly. "I just reminded you who I've been this whole time." The day faded, and the sun dipped behind the hospital's towering walls. Nia walked down the sterile hallway, her footsteps echoing against the cold tile floor. She didn't need to look back. She didn't need to hear the whispers of the staff, the hum of their admiration. She had already known what she was capable of. Today, they'd simply learned it for themselves. The hospital wasn't the only place that had underestimated her. In her years of training, from her first year of medical school to her rigorous surgical residency, she'd been dismissed, minimized, and ignored. She'd walked into rooms where her worth wasn't recognized because of her race, her gender, and her quiet demeanor. But Nia Bennet had learned something that most people never would. None of that mattered. She didn't need validation from anyone who couldn't see her value. As she stepped into the elevator and pressed the button to the parking garage, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from Nurse Carla. "Carla, you were incredible today. You've earned more than their respect. You've earned their trust. I believe in you." Nia smiled at the words. They were simple, but they meant everything. Carla had been there for her, quietly supporting, always hopeful. She'd known, from the start, that Nia was more than what anyone could see at first glance. The elevator doors opened, and Nia walked out into the dimly lit garage. Her car was parked at the far end, but she didn't rush. She walked with a steady pace, head held high. She had learned the hard way that you can't live your life waiting for others to catch up with you. You can't live your life measuring your worth against the ignorance of others. The wind was sharp as she reached her car, but the night felt different now, lighter, freer. Nia didn't need to prove herself to anyone. Not anymore. Today, she had reminded them of the truth that had always lived inside her. As she slid into the driver's seat and started the engine, she took a moment to reflect on everything that had happened. She hadn't just saved a life. She'd saved herself from the trap of doubt that so many of her colleagues had tried to put her in. She'd walked through that door knowing exactly who she was. And that was all that mattered. Nia drove home, the headlights cutting through the darkness, the city's lights twinkling in the distance. The world might not always see you for who you truly are. But when you know your worth, when you truly understand your value, nothing can shake your foundation. The rest of the world will catch up eventually. Have you ever had to prove your worth, to show people what they couldn't see at first? Share your story below and tell us how you stood strong in the face of doubt. Remember, no one can define your value except you.